Hello and welcome to evening 2 of our pop-up event. Thank you for people who have joined and aren't watching the football. We really enjoyed last night, and it was we had a few people that we hadn't met before on. It was a bit of a mix. I think it was about 14-15 people last night. We had some nice questions towards the end. We were going to start off seeing how people found yesterday, but those people are not here. So we would like to start with a question that Jules had. So if you wanted to ask your question, and then we'll speak to that and then just see where the evening takes us.
Okay, so my question is, I've listened to one of your YouTube videos, and on it you said how you got involved in Sydney Banks, the 3 principles, and you'd been traveling, and then you went with your family, and that was it. You realized everything kind of melted away, all your anxieties and everything that you thought you were. And I kind of just wanted to explore that a bit more, like what exactly happened. And
Cool. Yeah, so I'd been I was kind of like a serial traveler. I'd go traveling expecting to arrive and be someone else, and then get there and still be me. And then I'd come back, save up money and go off again, searching for peace of mind, happiness, this kind of cool person I thought I could be if I traveled. And then I got back and my sister had made friends with all this new group and we're talking about the 3 principles. And within the group, no one could really say what it was. But I was interested, like they were kind of buzzing with it. So I went up to London with my sister and my auntie and my cousin. I don't really know what I expected. But for 3 days, we got to listen to Dr. Roger Mills sharing. There's a lady called Margaret Opio who was from Uganda and had a very traumatic time leaving Uganda and had lost family and things. And she was so filled with passion and love about this understanding. You kind of, even though her accent was quite strong, I couldn't understand a lot. There was a feeling that she came from. And we also got to see videos of this understanding being shared in prisons and homeless shelters, within relationship, within business. And it was weird because just my mind just got quieter and quieter and quieter and quieter. And as my mind quietened, that ever-present well-being or soul or true self or source suddenly got really loud. And the louder that got, the more silence there was. It's hard to put into words. I think I spoke a bit about this last night. But it was the absolute knowing that what was being pointed to was true. That it was a fact of life. It was a fact of existence. It wasn't a good idea or a theory, which I'd been exposed to so many good ideas and theories, and they all made sense. They all made perfect sense. If you can do this and you'll feel better if you do that. And in this moment, imagine everyone naked because then you won't feel so insecure and all of that kind of stuff. And I'd listened to tapes about extreme self-confidence, and I tried homeopathy, hypnotherapy, like normal counselling, drugs, alcohol, everything. And then, but suddenly it was like I was sat in the presence of something factual and true. And I knew that something resonated inside in a way that I can't put into words. And it's really weird because you kind of look back and it's like, well, what happened? And I remember my friend who was studying psychology, she was doing a master's in psychology. She was like, but what was the process? What did you hear that made that happen? And what are these principles? And I don't know. Like, I don't really know what was said. I said, but just something shifted in my being, and a load of like chunks of thinking that I've seen as true and real have fallen off of me. And I'm kind of in this massive, like, unknown and feeling of potential. Well, if I'm not all of that, then what am I? And the crazy thing is like that space was so beautiful, but then thought created reality is still at play. So I created another ego, another character. I'm someone that's interested in the 3 principles. I really want to share the 3 principles with people. I'm a facilitator. I'm really interested in this. And just over the years, more character gets developed. But you start to see we're not the character. We are that pure potential for any experience in any moment. We are not fixed in time and space. We are not bound by circumstance. We're not bound by the past. We are pure potential in any moment to recreate. And I think having spent 23 years and a huge chunk of that time feeling very bound and very restricted, to suddenly have that open space and know that it was true. It was way truer than anything I'd ever thought before. I started to just have conversation, and then synchronicities and meeting people and chance encounters, like so much stuff seemed to happen for me after that initial thing. And I'd meet up with old friends and they wouldn't recognize me. Like they said, my face visibly changed because there was a lightness. There wasn't like this like tension of carrying who I thought I was. And it's really weird because I can probably speak about it more now than I could then, because what took place didn't take place in the intellect, and it didn't take place in an idea. It was like in the collapse of all ideas, in the collapse of intellect, what's already true shone forth. And then once I knew it was true for me, I knew it was true for everyone. So suddenly it was like, I have to somehow share this. So despite the fact that, you know, shy thoughts, I'm not good enough thoughts, all of that would still sort of come and go. But this deeper desire for service and to share just totally took over. And I've been on some incredible trips since then, like the opportunities, the meetings. I was thinking last night, one of my favorite moments after this was going out to America and getting to film this understanding being shared in a homeless shelter in California. And there's one lady there who initially said she didn't want to be filmed because she didn't have her teeth in. And then she said, no, it's okay, you can film. And she said she had been sat there in a room, not feeling very good. She'd been years in the homeless community, in and out of shelters, had come from quite a difficult background. And then she described, she said, it was like a light bulb went off in my brain and everything was different. And that was the way that she described the moment of just sat there like in a fog, listening to this lady called Anita St. John, who herself had been homeless years before. And she was listening and she was full of fog. And then suddenly this light bulb moment, and she said everything changed. And then what she brought to the community was very different. And then so many of those people moved their way out of being homeless. Some of them ended up facilitating. And it's just blown my mind that, because you can see someone and think, God, is this really true for you? Because your circumstance seems so dire. And then you see them wake up and it's like, it doesn't matter about any of that. Well-being exists in the midst of it. And some of them stayed in the situation they were in and didn't move out of it, but they touched that place. And I think that's kind of what I love, because I think before I thought you have to wake everyone up and make everyone have a sort of life that we think is acceptable or good. But I was like, no, but if people touch that space in themselves, that's enough. And their wisdom will guide them to the life and it will unfold. And sometimes we have to go to some really crappy places to learn. Like, the other thing that I came away knowing was that I get to see such a limited perspective and idea of life and reality. I've got a glimpse of what was being pointed to. I know that, like a glimpse. So there's so much more to see. So suddenly judgment and kind of an idea that I know how things should unfold became a ridiculous idea. How on earth would I, this little ego me, have any idea? The glimpse of what we truly are, that knows how to live life. That knows how to move me, knows how to move other people. And I feel like it didn't, I never had to have faith or believe. It was just, I know that this is true. I've touched on a truth, the only truth. And that glimpse or that touch shifted things so dramatically for me, I know that that's all other people need to see. But I also know if they don't see it, it's still true for them. And I don't know, it takes a lot off your mind, because I used to worry about myself and about people and about the world, and to know that there is well-being, true well-being at the heart of everything, and then the reality and the illusion of life that takes place is the dream state. And I got a sort of felt experience of the truth of that. And then on a day-to-day level, you get to see that we create a nightmare in the day and we have an awful day, or we create the most beautiful day and everything feels wonderful and nothing's changed. So you start to see what was meant by an illusion. You start to see what's meant by this isn't as real as we think it is. It's not as fixed and solid as we think it is. And I think another thing that I found incredibly helpful listening was Roger Mills used to speak about levels of consciousness. And he said, this is just an arbitrary made up thing. He said, but it might be helpful. And he said, you know, from this level of consciousness, all you can see is right in front of you. And then you might just shift into another level and suddenly there's a few more possibilities. And then you might shift again and again and again. And he said, and that's infinite. So the level that we're seeing at is always going to be a perspective and a potential within an infinite amount of perspectives and potentials. So suddenly you don't feel as kind of, even when you feel stuck and that's all you can see, there's the awareness that there's more. There's the awareness that that's one potential within infinite. So that does something for people, even when they get or feel stuck, if that makes sense. And then as a family, to have all had exposure to this and be able to see this, we've got to remind each other. Because I honestly felt like I could never get lost in thought in the same way again. But there's been times when I've got really lost in thought, and it's been wonderful to have people around me to just love me and not try and change me, but to guide and point. And like Dave and I have got one another. But that was the other thing I believe really helped my initial shift, was that having people around me who also were looking in the same direction and I could bounce off. I can imagine if you sort of have a big shift and then everyone around you sees life very differently, or almost the opposite, it may feel harder to kind of keep that alive. Definitely not impossible. There's people, but I'm really incredibly grateful to have had that opportunity for community, because we had something called the Blue Bloom Foundation that we used to meet up once a week or twice a week, have a shared meal and just kind of explore what we were seeing and help one another. So that was a really, and that's why we do community group. Like Dave started it because he wanted to start community. He wanted to keep that feeling alive. And then now we do it because we want to support people that maybe don't have others in their lives who are interested and don't want these kind of conversations. Yeah, so I don't know if that answers your question, or if there's anything else from that you wanted me to speak to, but
I think that's answered it. It's attaining it. How do you attain it? How do you get there?
I think in a way it's recognizing like our desire to attain something is the suggestion that we're not already it.
What are you trying to attain?
That absolute knowing. What am I trying to attain? That absolute knowing that I've heard people talk about they are at one with everything. They are at one with the trees, they're at one with the animals, they're at one with everything. And I haven't experienced that. I have felt peace. I have felt love. But I think there's more.
I think in the spiritual community, there is an awful lot of spiritual ego.
Yeah, there is. There is. Yeah.
You know, spiritual ego, still ego. It's just ego taking a, oh, I'm a spiritual kind of. And
Yeah.
I think as a human being, I mean, in my life, I think I've had 3 moments of kind of realization that we are all one. There is just this force of life, and everything is that. One was when I was at the pits of despair at secondary school on a geography field trip up the Duddon Valley. Went for a walk. I'd had a massive fallout. Went for a walk, sat on the side of, I think it's back end of Coniston Old Man, staring at an orchid, having a cigarette, looking at then looked up at a buzzard, and suddenly felt this overwhelming gratitude and presence and love of joy of life, and just total love for all things. That lasted a few seconds and then left. And the second time was after a person they had that experience of death. And the third time was after I listened to Sid Banks. But I don't live in that state of being, trust me.
Okay.
Like, I'm speaking for me, and I'm pretty much speaking for you.
Well, I don't know what you're going to say yet.
We don't. You know, we as human beings are not meant to. That's my way of seeing it. As human beings, we're supposed to have this experience. If we weren't to put it this way, there is an intelligence that knows how to create a universe. It knows how to operate every single gland within our body. It knows how to manifest reality via consciousness. If we were meant to be living in the state of eternal, total awareness of oneness, we would be. We totally would be.
Well, I remember it being described on one of our events, because a friend of ours who I feel, like I said, his own enlightenment experience and just quietly gets on and lives his life. He came to one of the retreats that me and my ex-husband used to run. And at the beginning, we asked everyone to what were they there for? What were they hoping to get? So there's this big list. And then he sort of chuckled and he said, well, it seems what everyone's asking for is to die. And not have an experience and not be here and be human and have a separate reality and a life. We want to all be at one with God. Well, that's already true, but we get to dream up reality. And he just burst out laughing. And everyone in the room then sort of started laughing, because it suddenly seemed absurd that we're all trying to escape being a human being and having a life and being here. And I think that it kind of tickled me, and it really showed me. And when I was going through my divorce, it was only him. It was weird. I just said, can I come and stay with you in Wales, please? I knew there'd be no judgment and I knew there'd be no agenda. And I sat with him and he spoke to me, and I cannot remember half the things he said. But one of the things he said is, who's trying to understand what? You do realise once it's seen, there's no one there to see it. And that statement was another moment of like, little me ego trying to see something, trying to see oneness or feel oneness is an impossibility, because oneness only knows itself. There isn't another. So when that came off my mind, I felt like I fell into it more of like, oh God, yeah, what a cosmic joke. We're already it, but we get to play and be here. So sorry to interrupt, but that really reminded me. It was such a fun, because everyone in the room just started laughing. So like, oh, we've come here to die. Because that's what we're ultimately asking for, death of ego, death of an identity that can see and feel others. but we are already one. We are that one energy. And I feel like the work that you do with healing and stuff, you're going to just have beautiful moments, but it sounds like you also have an idea or a concept what it feels like to be at one with nature. And who knows what your level of peace or your level of love experientially is. So it's this idea that we create, and you often speak to this, of we create an idea of what we're looking for, and then we judge our experience up against it. So then we become way dissatisfied, but we don't know what we're looking for, really.
You can't know it.
Yeah.
This is the thing. It's such an interesting thing because people, you know, people do. I was really fortunate because I had no background in spirituality, you know, and so I think I hadn't come across the principles. I hadn't come across people's transformational stories. I just got to listen to Sid and bang, wake up. Because when I had that death experience, it didn't wake me up. It brought me a few powers, like for manifestation, but it was more communication than anything.
I'm just going to go and put the radio.
Yeah, go put the radio. I got Bill, the dog, howling in the background because Liz has gone out. But it is interesting. People are searching for this thing. And they do have an idea as to what they think they're looking for. And in my experience, I would never in a million years have even known what revealed itself was even there. So I would never have looked for that.
Yeah.
You see, so, and I can't look for it. Do you know what I mean? I can't make myself go there. It was so profound. It changed my life in a moment. Since that day, I've done this work. Do you know what I mean? That's how much it affected my life. Since that day, I have done this work in one way or another. It had such a profound impact on me. But all I discovered was really, to put it into a word, life. I discovered life. Not what life's doing. Not what life's showing up like. Not what life feels like. Fuck me, I've done 33 years of that. I discovered life itself, the livingness, the magical. If anybody wants to find the spiritual self, you're looking for life. No concepts.
Yeah.
No ideas. No, oh, it looks like this or it looks like that. It doesn't look like anything. It's just, it's an awareness state of crippling love. Want of a better word. Don't know why I said that word, but it's a love that just destroys everything about you. And I mean, in my experience, became very lonely. I became really lonely. It wasn't, as much as I would never change it in a million years, I lost all my friends. My family just did not want to be around me. They thought I was fucking mental.
Well, you became evangelical.
Well, I did, but also my family weren't of that kind of conversation. Yeah. No, do you know what I mean? So it was like I lost all my friends and I lost my family for a good, well, it was my sister first, about 8 months. She was the first person who woke up my sister. Then a year later, my mum, and then a few years later, my dad. Do you know what I mean? And most of my friends that I had back then, I barely see them. I had to find new friends, and I still love them dearly. Do you know what I mean? But we just grew apart. It was quite a violent thing, really, for my little life. It was beautiful. I knew I was all right throughout the whole thing. Because when you find life, you realize you are always all right. You are always all right. Have you ever noticed there's something about life? It's like it doesn't care what the environment it will produce itself in there. So even in the Fukushima nuclear reactor, there's a mold growing. Life just does. Life's an amazing thing that defies all logic. What is life?
I've just kind of had a moment that I think I've already found it, but I just didn't realize it.
Quite possible, love. Quite possible. I have no idea what it looks like for what somebody else's experience of it is.
Yeah.
How
Because I
they
can feel it. I can feel it. I can feel it now. And I know that feeling, and I've had it a while. And I know one of the reasons I came to Cornwall 2 years ago, I was broken down and I knew I had to hermit. I knew I had to find me. And that was part of the process. So I know what it feels like. I've got it. I've got it.
everybody's got it.
But I didn't realize I had.
Yeah.
And I think that's quite true what you said about the spiritual community, because they can compare, well, you can't do this, or I do this and you don't, and you know, and it's not right. It's not right. There is a lot of spiritual ego.
I think
Just,
that was one of the cool
just
things.
typical humans, really.
That was one of the cool things about hearing. I got to meet Sid once, but hearing stories of he was just an ordinary man, and he carried on. Initially, I remember someone telling me a story like, he was like, well, should I wear white? And he tried that for a bit, and he tried on all the, and then he, oh no, you're just ordinary. I'm just an ordinary man. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. And I got to have this beautiful experience, which I now get to share. But he was just an ordinary man. And I think one of the things I think he saw at the time was how many ideas and concepts there were within spirituality, and how that creates an idea of them and us.
A divide. Yeah, there's a divide.
But he just knew it was the ordinary moment. And people would say, you know, you'd walk along with him and he'd stop and he'd be like, oh, this is the most beautiful flower I've ever seen. And he'd well up and get filled up with just beauty. And he'd be like, oh, this is the nicest cup of tea I've ever had. And they said that he was just so present. And then they talk about he had, you know, he'd had moods. He could get angry, he could get upset, like, but it was very transient. Like they didn't try and make out that he somehow had transcended being a human being. He got to see through, and he said he experienced death of ego, and he got to be in that space. And then he came back into Sydney Banks, the man, and he got to point and share. And some of his talks, you can just see it's almost like, it just feels like it's just a channel for, like, it's just incredible. But he was a man. And I think for some reason we've created an idea of that, like the human self and the spiritual self and spirituality and then life and
I'm a spiritual person. I'm not a spiritual person. All that kind of stuff doesn't exist.
all of the divides. But I think, like, I remember not long after coming across this, walking along and the pavement was all like crooked, and then there was like little plants and things growing through concrete. And the question came into my head of, like, how does that tiny plant that I could literally snap break concrete that's really hard? And I was pondering it, and then it was like, well, it's the life force. It's life force does that. It's not the physical that we see. And then I was like, well, that's true for us. Like, we are like that little plant that sometimes feels vulnerable and all those things, but there's a life force that gets us through, and we are able to handle this life. Like, we're built for it. And I remember being like, wow, so that spiritual essence, that spiritual energy there's evidence for it everywhere. And it doesn't look a certain way. It's all of it.
Yeah.
And I love that you're like, oh no, it's that feeling. That's one thing I heard in every single talk that Sid ever gave. He said, look for a feeling. It's in a feeling. And he said, and if you're sat in here and nothing makes sense to you, but you've got a beautiful feeling, leave it alone and it will grow and it will guide you and it will take care of you. And that's the beautiful thing. Like, it's not necessarily what we're looking for, but that feeling, you recognize it. And I saw it in your face when you said it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm happy now.
This, you know, this is it. All we're doing is we're reminding people
Mm,
that they're not their story. They're something else.
yeah.
You know, and that can sound tiny. Ooh, you know, reminding people we're not our story. We're not our ego. But no, when you start to realize the magnitude of that point,
Mm,
what is our story? Well, it's everything we've done today. It's every single bit of behavior we've ever carried out. It's every single feeling we've ever felt. It's every single thought we've ever thought. That's our entire life story.
mm.
That's who we introduce ourselves as. That's our names. That's our ages. That's our
Jobs.
jobs. Yeah, that's our religion. It's our culture. It's our skin color. It's everything to us. It's what we like. It's what we don't like. It's what we think is true. It's what we think is false. It's what we think is right. It's what we think is wrong. You know, we're talking about, it's none of that. It's none of it. We're none of it. And these are just words, you know, and these are just words. What I'm saying now isn't it either. People go in search. But I often liken that to being given a map. I'll give that person a map and I'll say, what are you looking for? And they go, don't know. Is it on this map? I go, yeah, I think so. All right. Where are you on this map? I don't know. All right, well, off you go. Go and search. So they set off walking around, they set off walking, they go searching, they're looking on the map, trying to figure out whereabouts they are. They're trying to figure out where this thing is on the map. Where's the X? Where's the X marks the spot? The funny thing about this X is it follows them around everywhere they go. What everybody is looking for, they already are in the moment, not in the future. They weren't it in the past. Oh, just then it was when I was in the past. It was in that moment that I was it. No, none of that exists. That's all part of the story. We're trying to help people see past the story of time, the illusion of time. And we're helping people come back to the moment, come back to the now, and discover that you're making everything up. Everything is made up. Whatever we think becomes our reality. Now, this is where people go outside, bang, straight back outside of themselves again. Oh, so what you're saying is, if I think I'm going to be in a car crash, I'm going to be in a car crash. Well, I'll tell you what, my life isn't that bad. You wouldn't think so, follow me about today, I've been in a foul mood. My life isn't that bad. If you could see the thoughts that run through my head, and they don't all manifest in the world. They don't. I'm not talking that outside in thing again, you know, where people go to The Secret and the law of attraction. That's all great. I'm not decrying it in any way whatsoever. But what I want people to notice is they have an experience of life. What's that? Go inside. Stop looking outside. Stop looking to try and change the world to feel better. The world never created your feelings in the first place. You have an experience of life. What's that? What is that magical display of reality that you are encountering right now? Where does it come from? Who are you? Are you really your name that you were given at birth? I was nearly called Steve.
Georgina. I was nearly called Georgina.
James. I was nearly called James. My apology. Hey?
Georgina. I was nearly called Georgina.
Yeah. You
Mm.
too, Georgina. I like that.
Mm.
But we're going far more simple. You know, what we're talking about is we're taking life, stripping it back to its most simple, fundamental form. What is life?
I think people just get so hung up on their identity of what job they do or have done or who they're married to or what they were like at school. Do you know what I mean? It all defines them, but it doesn't.
No.
It doesn't. But they think it does.
Yeah.
And then we place our worth in it.
Yeah.
Judge it, and we measure it up against other people. And
yeah. Yeah.
We had a client once. She came and did an intensive with us. She had a great big shift. I'm not knocking this girl. I still question thinking. In fact, no, I'm not even going to go there. What do you reckon? No, I'm not.
Probably best not. Probably best
I'm
not.
not going to. I'm not going to. Not going to. No, I won't do that. No, but it is interesting how much people attach outside things to their worth. What is life itself worth? How much money is the magical, spiritual, creative force of source, unified field, infinite potential? How much money is that worth?
Can't put a value on it.
It's valueless. It has no monetary value. So we have no monetary value. Not in truth. If you believe that whole you're worth your weight in gold thing, then some people would say, oh, human beings do have a monetary value. But when you look at it in and of itself, it's like life, the livingness of life, the magical display, this spiritual force of infinite creation. How much is that worth? How much could he buy it for? Not talking about a human being. You buy a human being. Sadly, you can buy a human being. I'm talking about the livingness of life. Can you buy any more of it for yourself? Can you hoard it?
No, you can't. You can't top up the tank like going to a petrol station.
That's right.
I'm running a bit low. I just need to get a bit more fuel in now.
That's right. But we don't. And that beautiful thing is we never need to.
No.
That's the beautiful thing about it. And our conversation is only ever about noticing. The one thing that we ask, we was asked this question, what do you want us to do? And the only thing that came to me in that moment, as I said it, I heard the truth of it for myself. I just said, I just want you to notice.
Yeah.
That's all mine and Jen's conversation is about. It's about noticing, not doing anything, not sitting down, meditating or anything like that. If you want to meditate, cool. People ask us, do we meditate? No, we don't. Are we against meditation? No, if you want to meditate, it's your life. We don't meditate. Most of the time we live in a fairly meditative state.
Like when you're metal detecting, you're totally in a meditative state.
Yeah. No, and just most of the time I don't know about, excuse me 1 second, I'll sneeze. Excuse me. It's not that I don't have thoughts, but there was a time when my thoughts used to rule my life. But now the thoughts don't rule my life like they used to. And sometimes, don't get me wrong, but most of the time they don't. Just thoughts come and go, like waves on an ocean.
Yeah. I've said many a time, this kind of argument about meditation. I do meditate. However, there are so many different types of meditation. And I said, you know, remember when we were younger and we had our granddads that used to sit at the window and looking at the birds. That's a form of meditation.
Yep.
Just looking at the birds feeding off the feeder, or going out in the garden and faffing with your pots, and that's a meditation, because you're in the moment and you're not thinking about everything else.
It's like my question would be, why do people meditate?
It's to allow the thoughts to just come in and to go, so you're not overwhelmed by the barrage of thoughts. It's to quieten the mind, basically.
Now, what you described there, I think, is a beautiful description, but it comes from us having fear about our own thoughts. It comes from us believing that our thoughts have power.
Yeah.
You see, if you think about it logically, no thought has any power in and of itself.
No, but it's also gives you an opportunity. You're creating space to hear from within.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you're busy in your daily life, you don't have the space to hear what's within.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But the reason why, and again, I'm not knocking meditation, but I'm just saying the reason why we meditate is to try and as you described, to try and have thought without them having us. So we can be in that space of non-attachment to thought. Now, to me, that comes with understanding. To me, it's totally possible to gain insight into the nature of thought and start to collapse reality down. Because the only form of stress on the entire planet, the only source of stress on the entire planet is thought. There is no thing outside of ourselves that is a stress generator. Stress is a creation of our own mind. That's why you can have 10 people doing the same job. Some will find it stressful, some won't. You know, you can have people who go to war and they're being shot at. Some find it stressful, some find it, no, I felt really alive. You know, and I can look at like Facebook and feel totally overwhelmed. Where the fuck do I start with this? And Jenny just looks at it and goes, "I'll sort it out. Leave, get out of the way. You go do what you're good at. I'll do what I'm good at." I'm like, all right, good. Thankfully, we've got each other for that one. But it's like when there's a logic to life that once we start to understand it, once we start to understand how we live in a thought-created reality, and we start to see that point isn't some kind of fanciful little really, what's the point in pointing that out, Dave? How does that actually affect anything or change anything? It depends on what level we see that. If we see that with our intellect goes, yeah, that's true. Fair enough. But then what?
Yeah.
Start dreaming up a million questions. If that's seen from beyond the intellect, at a heart level, a soul level, whatever you want to call it, if there isn't a full-on realization and insight into the fact, that's true. We live in a thought-created reality. That's true. That will have a totally different impact on a human being. Now, it is true. It is real. That is the truth. That is the truth of our experience of reality. As our thought changes, so everything we experience as our reality, as our life changes. Things look different. People look different. Work looks different. The financial system, financial situation looks different. The weather looks different. What looked impossible suddenly looks possible. What looked
Yes.
like hard work suddenly doesn't.
Yeah, it's perspective.
Yeah, and that's what's going on. We're living in an eternal state of perspective, but the perspective is a creation of our mind. Now, when we collapse that down again and we realize, well, there is only one point in existence that this is taking place. That's the now. And that's seen at a depth, not just at the intellect, because the intellect will go, yeah, all right, that's true. But then it'll bring up a million questions. But what about this? What about that? You know, are you saying I shouldn't plan for this? Are you saying I shouldn't plan for that? No, I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just saying that reality only exists now. You only have to get through now for the rest of your life. That's the only point you ever have to get through, is now for the rest of your life. Now, if somebody sees that at depth, their future thinking, their past thinking will quieten down. The moment they start future thinking, they'll be go, oh, here I am again, dreaming up future scenarios, stressing myself out about them. What's going to happen to the world? Are we going to go into nuclear war? Is Donald Trump going to get into power? Is Donald Trump not going to get into power? Is Keir Starmer this? Is Keir Starmer that? Is global warming going to destroy the planet? You know, but the moment we come back and we realize that none of that truly exists, it's a figment of our imagination. The moment that's seen at depth, seen with the intellect, it'll go, yeah, that's true. But what about if it's seen at depth? An individual realize that that is true, and they will, the moment they start going into future thinking, the moment they become aware of it, it'll stop. They'll stop it. Because it doesn't make sense anymore to live from that space. Same with the past, people who suffer from the past, PTSD, all these kind of things, guilt, regret, remorse, all these things, hatred from people of the past, like grudges and stuff like that. The moment that they realize that their experience of life is being created by them in the now, the past doesn't exist.
Yeah. Where they're dragging it in. Yeah.
They keep
recreating.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
They just keep
Yeah.
recreating them. If
Yeah.
that's seen from the intellect will go, yeah, that's true. But am I going to forgive them? No, am I going to forgive them? But the moment it's seen from a depth and an individual realizes that, oh, I am responsible for my feelings. I create my own feelings. I can't blame anybody else or any other thing for how I feel. There is no thing outside of me creating my experience of life. Only my consciousness can create my experience of life. And that's seen at a depth. Forgiveness becomes really simple because you realize you're only hurting yourself. The other person doesn't get to feel it. You know, and an individual will realize that what happened in the past no longer exists.
Yeah.
Now, when people realize the past no longer exists, it makes life really, really simple again. There is only life. The only thing that truly exists is life now. The livingness now, however that is showing up in this moment, is up for grabs. That can change in a moment.
Yeah.
So, and when we start to make sense of reality, make sense of life, a meditative state becomes pretty frigging normal. Because that individual will spend less time trying to sort out their stressful situations. When people realize that stress is thought, it's a load. Stress is just a shitload of thinking. There's no circumstance in the world that creates stress. Stress is created from our own mind. It's just a shitload of thinking. Who was I speaking to the other day? Sorry.
I was just going to say, where are the times where I wanted people to be able to ask
Oh, yeah.
questions and things.
Sorry, I was just going to, I'll finish off with this. I was speaking to somebody the other day. Who the hell it was, and I've even forgotten, but it was a person who was trying to live through all these different experiences that haven't happened, all future thinking, stressed out to hell. And by the time we finished, we'd quietened them down, got them back into the now, they realized what had been going on. They could see it clearly. When you're in it, you can't see it, by the way. When you're in it, you're in it. When I'm in it, I'm in it.
Oh.
All right. It's, it quite often this reveals itself when you quieten down. And that's the beautiful thing about being stressed out. You will quieten down. Think about being angry, you'll calm down. Think about being depressed. You're not going to be depressed forever. Anxious, you're not anxious forever. When you quieten down, you have more clarity.
Hello, welcome to new people. I realise
Welcome everyone.
we asked at the beginning if anyone had questions, and if some people were on yesterday, and if there's anything that came up for them, but if anyone's new and there's something they wanted us to speak to, please go ahead and ask.
I love Wendy getting down with the
Northern lingo.
It's not even northern, is it? I think in it actually comes from I think it did not come from the Indian kind of culture. In it. I think
Anyway.
Carry on.
Yeah, so does anyone have questions or comments or anything that came up for them yesterday? Yeah, because I know, Chloe, I saw that you put a video on. I wasn't sure if it's because you wanted to say something or you were just putting your video on because you finished eating or something.
You wanted to gloat you're in San Francisco.
No, literally just gloating. I'm in a fake San Francisco, to be honest with you. I was eating beforehand, so.
Cool.
How are you doing, love?
Doing great, actually. Since I've come back, I've been starting to teach people like a bit about the pre-principles and stuff like that. So I've been sharing it a lot, and people have been like really interested and been wanting to watch Sydney Banks videos and stuff like that.
Cool.
So yeah, doing pretty well actually at the moment.
Nice.
Oh, it's nice to see your face.
Then that's all that exists.
It's lovely seeing you guys.
Nice to see you.
Thank you for coming.
No worries.
One of the other things I was going to say briefly is that it's interesting about this idea of meditation and things, because I think there's the logic and the truth of this understanding seems to, like, I know when I just need to go and be quiet, take myself off and be quiet, and I kind of know when, I don't know, I kind of trust the movement, and I get a feel for when I'm really heady or busy, and give myself a bit of space or quiet if I can, and then there's been times where I've been in the midst of noise and busyness, and then that quiet's just found me. So I see that it isn't dependent on something, that feeling. So I don't know if other people have had experience of that, or if anything came up for people through that conversation. I know a few different people have joined at different times, but we'd love to make this relevant for who's with us tonight. So if there is anything people would like us to speak to, please either put it in the chat or just unmute yourself and ask. I've just realised that's Lisa.
I know, yeah. In a camper van.
You're not. What's your phone called?
Yeah, my phone seems to be called Farday's phone because it's the phone that obviously the guy that owned it before me was called Farday or something. So it's just stuck and it pops up everywhere. And yes, I'm in the camper van with 6 dogs.
Nice.
Because Tilly's away, and I was like, let's try this. Let's see if we can make it work. So I'm pinned down, with a selection of beasties. It's nice to see you both.
Nice to see you, love.
Sorry I haven't seen you for a while.
It's nice. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, well, I just noticed it. I was like, whoa, what's better than football and catching up with you two on a, is it Sunday? Better I'd be,
Sunday.
or I'm in trouble. Yeah, cool. Anyway, yes, I'm looking forward to just listening in, and
Cool.
I've got nothing of any interest to say apart from stop getting in dogs. Stop rescuing dogs. Yeah.
I think it's beautiful what you do, love. It's very kind.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll mute myself and just listen in.
All right, love. Thanks, Fardo. Okay, anybody else?
Well, you know when you know something and you forget, like we know it and we forget, and we know it and forget. What came up, nobody else is speaking, was that not on you to fix. Yeah, we can get so caught up in, especially if you're a fixer, you know, of fixing, wanting to fix things and worrying about what ifs and stuff. It's not on me to fix. Yeah, not on me to. I don't know whether that fits in with the principles, but it's seemed to be something that, yeah, like the principles, you see it and then you lose it, and see it and then lose it, and yeah, for what that's worth.
Yeah, you can't lose the principles.
No, but they do get clouded over. No, you don't lose them.
They also don't get clouded over, Lise. You can't cloud the principles over.
Well, my brain
It's
does.
through it's through the principles, mind, consciousness, thought, that we create all experience.
But we all go down a rabbit hole, don't we?
Yeah, and that's created from the principles.
Yeah, but remembering that, oh shit, I'm down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, I mean, that's great.
There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong. It's just the shit show traveling theatre company.
I was looking forward to hearing what that was actually called. The shit show traveling theatre. Oh. Don't know if the shit show traveling theatre is going to come back. But I think it's a really important point, you know, because we're not talking about something
passing through my.
Oh,
you've been.
You disappeared, Lise.
Oh yeah, oh you did too.
Theatre. Oh,
I'm obviously in a time warp hole thing, you know.
TARDIS.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't know whether my doodah's going to support this, so I'll to listen to what I can. And
all right, Lise.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, love.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, you've given us something really nice to talk about there, Lise, because and I hope people don't think I'm being pedantic, but the principles don't have an opinion on anything. You know, people often say, what do the principles say about such and such? How does the principles apply to the principles are already applied, and the principles don't say anything about anything. The principles, mind, has everybody got mind? Yes. Consciousness, is anybody not a state of consciousness? No. Thought, is there anybody not endowed with the power of thought? No. You know, they don't have an opinion on anything. They don't say anything about anything. They are three descriptions of a unified force of infinite creation. The description of our soul, an infinitely conscious mind. Description of life. They're not a technique. They're not a good idea. They describe how reality is born, and whether that is ending up down a rabbit hole, that's because of the principles. You could only do that if you were conscious. You could only do that if you had a mind. You could only do that with thought. Likewise, living in peace and joy. Well, you could only live in peace if you are conscious. You could only live in peace if you have mind. You could, our mind, in fact, you could only do that via thought. What we're dreaming up, how we're using our gifts, how we're using our gift of reality creating. So yeah, the principles don't have an opinion. They're not kind of based in any kind of ideology. They're just a simple logic. And that's the beauty of this conversation. Because in a world that's riddled with theories, good ideas and opinions, and my way's the right way, and this, that, and the other, we're not saying that this is the right way. We're saying it's the only way. Every other, and think about it, that's not an arrogant statement. That's not me being arrogant. It's a logic. Ask yourself, check it out. Mind, consciousness, thought. We've come quite late into this conversation to even bring up those words. Usually we don't tend to go to those words so much, but not in that context. But those are the principles that Sid Banks spoke of. And mind, consciousness, thought. Well, that's applicable to all people. That's the unified field. That applies to everyone. So it doesn't matter who you are, the principles are applicable. But they're already applied. So they can't give you anything you've never lacked. These are spiritual force. Spiritual. Mankind did not invent mind. Mankind did not invent consciousness. Mankind did not invent thought. Pigeon's still there. Conscious thinking mind. Wrapped up in a load of feathers. He's having a lot of amorous thought lately, and I'm feeling a little bit sorry for him because he's all sat on his own now. It's now worse than that when you're full of amorous thought and there's nobody there. Well, shut up, Dave. Molly, did you unmute yourself to say something? Hi, by the way.
Hello. Could be. I think that was probably my intention, is to say something. Well, I'm happy to be here, and I'm finding. I was sorry to have to leave early yesterday. I had an appointment, but I'm finding it very refreshing the way both of you express, and I guess what led me to unmute myself was just sort of acknowledging what I've been hearing has made me homesick. And I first came across the principles a long time ago. We're talking 30 years. Wasn't even called the principles, it was psychology of mind, you know. And I read Sid's work, but it was after several years that I first heard his voice. I hadn't heard it, you know, before. And it sent me into like a 3-day, like, you know, I actually had to say to my mind, are you still there? I haven't heard a peep out. I was like, you know, and I had to drive through a snowstorm, a blizzard. And, you know, usually I'd be white knuckling it. And I was just like, whatever, you know, it's all good. And also the world just appeared in all its magic. I mean, it was just weird, but cool and gorgeous, mystical. And that kind of feeling has visited me here and there throughout my life, and then, you know, disappeared as it does. And but I kind of feel like what I've been realizing listening to you both is that because I had those experiences and kind of connected them with the principles and the stuff that opened up for me early on. But even before I ever met this understanding, you know, just things as a child or whatever. And then I kind of got bogged down in trying to understand it and get it right. And I sought out, you know, basically everybody and did sessions with them or did their trainings or, you know, I mean, and I was always asking tough questions because I was, I guess out of insecurity, I just wanted to, you know, get it right. And if I saw any flaws in anyone's thinking, I go after them to the point where a lot of these presenters just really wished I hadn't joined in the conference, you know, like get her out of here. But I realized that, you know, as I'm listening, and especially Jenny, when you were talking yesterday about, you know, when you first met Roger Mills, and he's one of the first who I read, and describing how you know, this light kind of came on, and it was night and day, and I was like, yeah. And so I feel like I've gotten so jaded with the principles and the whole principles community and all these people talking, you know, and I'm just like, I guess that the contrast with all that headiness with that just pure spirit that just whooshes through you. And I guess, you know, I've just become very, very tired of attacking this understanding with my mind, with my intellect, you know. And again, you know, even as I'm saying this, you know, I'm sort of like, well, how do I get back to that? You know, like, what do I do? Which is just, you know, and I think the thing is, I was exposed to Aaron Turner lately, and some stuff he was saying, he was sort of going on a direction of talking about mind, and the way he was talking about it was, I could feel, oh, he's talking about the big, you know, limitless. I mean, I could get the feeling. It was like beautiful, and also, and I said to him, I said, you know, the way you're talking, I sort of thought of mind as a principle, as a kind of a neutral sort of, you know, Platonic ideal or something. And but the way you're talking, it's like, it's not neutral at all. It's got this profound, personal, benign quality. It's like here to help, or it's just not even help, but it's, anyway, it was very moving to me. So I feel like I'm kind of coming out of the wilderness of trying to get the principles after 30 years.
Oh, bless.
And just into just the pure feeling, which is like, can be so ordinary and blessedly ordinary, and at the same time just like, I don't know what you want to call it, but like everything glows. And I think maybe part of this like long search in the wilderness, partly it was because how much stuff was glowing, I found intimidating, you know, because those 3 days, especially, where I was just like, you know, I was like, I don't think you can really live like this, you know, like you got to get back to normal, you know. And but anyway, so it's all good. So even just sort of knowing that that's available, but it's not necessary, and that just normal daily stupid life is infused with that anyway, like it or not, you know. So anyway, just thought I would say that.
Nice, Molly. Thank you, love. Thank you for sharing that. I love hearing people who've been around the principles for a lot of years. And then love it when people are humble and, you know, share their experiences of it. Because it is a funny old game, this.
Yeah.
You have people gain a feeling state, an experience that they cannot put into words.
Yeah.
And then they run around trying to figure it out with words and concepts. Even though in their heart of hearts, they know they couldn't.
Yeah.
You know, and that would be kind of, if anybody who listens to this or listens at any point and gets an experience of that, like at any point in their life, and they touch that unspeakable space, the true magnitude of being, you won't figure it out. You cannot figure it out. So don't spend your life trying to, because you won't. I've done it. I've spent years trying to figure it out. How do I put words to it? You can't. You can just talk about the truth of something and hope that the individual who's listening hears. You know, and that was really beautiful. Thank you, Molly. Thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciated that. That was really beautiful.
Thank you.
I think you said as well, like the feeling. And Sid always spoke about the feeling. And I think we can get lost in this idea of a certain type of feeling.
Right.
Like, but it's that deeper feeling. And I think that there's no questions in that feeling.
Yeah.
I only got to see Sydney Banks once in London, and it was not long before he passed. I think we saw him in about the February, and I think he passed in around May or June. And so he wasn't very well, but it was like all of my questions collapsed in his presence.
Mm,
And the beautiful thing was there were other people there who were arguing with him, asking question after question. So I knew that what had taken place took place within me. And that was like the greatest gift, I think, because it was like, not everyone's having this experience right now, but there's this feeling here there's no questions, like this is it kind of thing.
yeah.
And when you were speaking, I felt like there was a place you were speaking from that was just very beautiful and very still. And I can just hear my baby, so I'm just going to go and see if she's all right.
Well, take a break.
Okay.
It's break time, everyone. Let's come back in 10 minutes.
Great.
Right? Go.
All right.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Molly, thank you for sharing that just before the break. In the recording, it's just going to sound like we're having a break. Thank you, Molly. And straight. Nil
Story
nil
of my life.
for anybody's remotely interested. It's 0-0.
Mhm.
But no, that was really beautiful. And I think what you describe is totally normal.
Mm.
You know, it's like my personal life. I mean, I've experienced times when I've felt so connected to life and so full of inspiration and so amazing. And there's times when I just don't.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? And I think the more that people learn to make peace with their experience of life, the more suffering diminishes.
Yeah.
You know, and one of my favorite quotes of Sid is, if the only thing that people learned was not to be afraid of their experience, that alone would change the world.
Yeah.
You know, because what we have learned to do is we've learned to kind of think that certain forms of experience are acceptable and some forms of experience aren't acceptable, as though they're coming from two different sources. You know, there's a good source and there's a bad source, and the source that creates the terrible feelings and experiences, well, that needs to be neutralized. We need to neutralize that and overpower it with this one. But in actual fact, there isn't two sources of experience. There's just a source of experience, and it creates all of everything, all reality, all experience, all feelings, all the trees, the birds, the insects, the berries. I'm watching a blackbird pick berries. It's gorging itself. Well, just as I was watching it, I was thinking about the sheer abundance that exists right now for blackberries, for blackbirds, sorry, just all the berries that are there for them. They're gorging themselves on it, and just this infinite force of creation all around us, from within us.
Well, and when I spent so much time being frantic to get back there, to do something, what do I do to get back there? Because that was right, that was good. And missing completely that when those states of mind, or those, when they would visit me, I didn't do anything to get them. And then also, it obscures all that seeking, obscures that this reality right here, right now, no matter what, is it. I mean, as if there's someplace else to get to, because there's just not,
Right.
And so, I mean, gradually, 30 years later, I'm starting to get that, and that it's almost funny,
It is though, isn't it? It is funny. And that's the nice thing about it. When it, I don't think I've ever come across anybody who's had a realization and gone, "You idiot! What were you doing for the last?" Everybody who's had a realization has either fallen into peace, or they've started laughing at themselves and gone, "What a joke."
Oh
What
yeah.
a joke.
Yeah, I mean, it's endearing to see how earnest I've been, but also kind of stupid, I mean, and so but even that's endearing. And but yeah, just realizing this of late is, it's helping me just settle down, like, and the kind of just like give up, stop it, stop trying.
Yeah. So true. And that's the thing. I love to ask that question, like when people do have shifts, what did you do? What did you do? And they kind of look a bit perplexed to begin with. They're like, oh, and they'll come back with nothing.
Right.
Didn't do anything. That's how much there is to do to find our well-being. That's how much there is to do to find our mental health, whatever you want to call it. Find peace. Or you do nothing. It's in our search that we're creating the impression it's not already present.
Right.
And it's, I often liken it, what we tend to do is if we are like an ocean, and each thought is like a wave, what we do is we're trying to find peace as an ocean. So what do? We start trying, I must think hard. How am I going to create peace? And as we think hard, we create waves.
Mm-hmm.
And then what do? We go, oh, right, well, I've got to figure out how to get peaceful. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Well, first of all, I need to do this. Let's go and do some meditation. I'll do some meditation. After that, I'm going to take the dog for a walk. After that, I'll take the dog for a walk. Then I'm going to sort out my finances, And every single thought we're having is like a wave. And then at some point, we make a bit of a discovery, and we realize that these waves aren't particularly conducive to peace. Then what do? We turn around, we walk into this water almost. You got to imagine you kind of stood on a beach, but we don't like the waves. So what do? We go to war with the waves. And we are like somebody then walking out into the ocean, trying to calm the sea down, pushing the water, waves, get back, level out waves. And we're trying to calm the water by battling the waves. not realizing that us going to war with our own mind, us condemning our thinking, us being afraid of our thinking, us judging our thinking is actually the very thing that's creating our suffering.
Mm-hmm.
Because in and of themselves, no thought has any power.
Right.
It's only what we believe thought to, whatever we believe into the thought, how much we trust that thought to be true. I mean, how many thoughts do we have a day? I don't have a clue, but most of them, one, I'm not aware of, and two, most of mine is just an absolute load of random bollocks.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's like I don't trust every single thought. Some of them I do. Why do I trust those ones over those ones? You know, why do I choose them to be acceptable over that one? Do you know what I mean? And you just start to catch on to your little tricks. You just start to catch on to your little tricks, like, and you just start to notice. And as you start to notice, nothing changes, but everything starts to change. But you haven't done anything. And I love that, because I am the world's laziest person.
No, that would be me.
Yeah, good. And it's like when Sue introduced me to the principal, she said, Dave, there's nothing you need to do. I was like, sign me up. Sign me up. I like what you have to say already.
Well, you know, and I've heard a lot of people talk about being aware of the quality of one's thinking. And I find even that for me, it's like, okay, well, just that is going to make me more neurotic, self-conscious. Like, oh, this is low quality thinking, which is kind of going to end in tears. So I got to kind of shift out of that into, you know, whatever. And I guess lately I've been seeing that it's all kind of neutral, you know. It's why, you know, I have awful thoughts all the time. They come in and out, devastating stuff. And it used to really propel me into working hard to, you know, do something about that. Like, don't be depressed, you know, have more self-confidence. And it's just like, you know, it's just more busy work. And it's like to have some of these thoughts come through that are just really loud and really convincing seeming and just awful. And instead to just go, yeah, whatever. I'm not going to try to improve my thinking or be vigilant, you know, to get better thoughts, higher quality, you know, higher altitude.
Yeah.
Because so, you know, wherever the thoughts are coming from, doesn't care, you know. It's just it's all included. And I lately just have been, since I'm a musician, I'm like I'm thinking of you know, being in an orchestra. And I remember one time, you know, it was Beethoven, and Beethoven is great for having over here with the flutes. You know, it's like, you know, birds singing and pastoral, and then somewhere the basses are going dun, 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 like something really menacing is brewing. And but you don't want to cut the bass line out or the menacing brewing thing, because it's so part of the whole symphony, you know. And to love all of that.
Yeah. That's beautiful. You see, when we're in acceptance, we're not in war.
Yeah.
You know, no wise person of the past ever came into the world and said, "Got a war," with anything. They encourage love for all, everything, to discover our the unified field, the oneness of life is in and of itself love. That's why we're on a perpetual search for it in every action that we carry out, because we're searching for love, we're searching for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking for life. We're looking for who our true identity is.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's beautiful. I love that. I think that's, you know, this is, my life got so much easier when I stopped being afraid to feel. You know, when I saw that feelings are not who I am, feelings are something I create.
Mm-hmm.
You know, feelings never once broke me.
Mm-hmm.
So feelings really don't, they don't really, as such, they don't really have any power. Only that the thing that I really, one of the things I really, really want to bring home to people is we are the thing that is the power.
Mm.
We are that is life itself. We are that decides what's right and what's wrong,
Mm-hmm.
what's good and what's bad. And the moment we make that judgment, we open ourselves up to suffering. That's just part of life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No, we're gonna have ego. We're gonna create stories. We're gonna have our preferences. That's part of life. Get over it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've got a friend who's so into not being judgmental, but well, sometimes I can hear himself being judgmental about the fact he's being judgmental. You know, I don't really say anything because I just know he's all right. He's all right anyway. It doesn't really matter. But we can, you know, it's sly, it's sneaky, but it's all right. But another thing you brought up just there was a distinction, and I think it's such a massive distinction, Molly. It's the difference between going from here to here, going from the head to the heart. You know, when we're talking about the power of thought, personally, myself, I'm not talking about thinking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm not interested in thinking. Why would I be interested in waves? Why would I be fascinated by something that comes and goes, moves around, shows up as a different shape to the next one, not eternal?
Mm-hmm.
You know, why would I be fascinated by that when I could be fascinated in the ocean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, because the wave in and of itself doesn't have any power. The thing that has the power is the ocean.
Mm.
That's the bit I'm interested in. I'm interested in the power of thought. All thought, infinite, the infinite nature of who and what we truly are. You know, if the power truly lay in an analysis of our thinking, how's my thinking going today? Right. Psychology would have worked. You know what I mean? There wouldn't be this complete and utter revolving door of people returning to psychologists time and time and time and time again and never finding their peace. If analysis of our thinking, the studying of the waves, worked and brought people peace.
Yeah.
But it doesn't.
Yeah.
It's sad to say it doesn't. It doesn't. But when we start to understand the nature, the power of thought, it's all thought. When you start to become aware of the ocean, what is the ocean? The ocean is the realization that it's all thought. It doesn't matter what wave is showing up, it's thought. It doesn't matter whether it's a ripple or it's flat calm or it's a tsunami. It's all made of water. Our experience of life is all thought consciousness. And it's like at that point, now we're getting somewhere because now we're getting to spiritual truth. Truth will set you free. What is a wave? Wave isn't truth. It's a manifestation from truth. It appears as truth and then it returns back. It's temporary. How can we find our true nature in something that's temporary? That's why the ego can never be, that's why we call it the ego. You know, and we say, whose ego are we talking about, Dave? Oh, we're talking about my ego. Whose thoughts are we talking about, Dave? My thoughts. Whose feeling are we talking about, Dave? My feelings. Whose watch is that? Oh, it's my watch. Whose cup of tea is this? Oh, it's my cup of tea. Whose laptop am we talking on? Well, it's mine, yeah, and Jenny's. But just for argument's sake, you know, whose car do I drive? I drive my car. Whose clothes are you wearing? I'm wearing my clothes. Whose experience of life we're talking about? Mine. Even in our language, there is this awareness. My thoughts, my clothes. I'm not my clothes, otherwise I'd be saying me. But mine, ownership, not me, ownership. My car, I know fine well I'm not my car. Whose ego? My ego.
Mm.
You know, in our language, it's there. And we speak that because we speak that truth day in, day out. My thoughts are like this. My experience of life is like, it's not me. That's the bit I'm interested in. I'm interested in that spiritual force. I think Jesus called it I am. The I amness of life. That before we stick any label on are following it. I am depressed. I am masculine. I am a lover of nature. I am somebody who doesn't particularly like Chinese food. I am straight, gay, whatever. I am 3 principles facilitate. I am Dave. What we do is we identify with what comes after I am. Wave. But what Jesus was encouraging people to do is stop identifying with what comes after I am, because that's your ego. That's your false identity. That's a creation. That's an identity you manifested. You created for yourself. You made up a story about yourself so you can kind of interact with the world. But it's not who you are. I am is who and what everybody truly is. I am that before the story. I am the ocean. I'm not my waves. But this ocean has started to seriously mistaken itself for its waves. It started to believe that its waves are who and what it is. Now, the moment it identifies itself as a wave, it becomes limited. It appears limited, should I say. It starts to appear limited. It starts to feel like it has no power. Well, it doesn't. The wave doesn't have any power. The ego has no power. It's a creation. The ego is a creation. It has no power. The power lies in the beingness that creates the ego. Power doesn't lie in the thinking. The power lies in the power of thought. The infinite creative force. The power lies in consciousness. It's suddenly, it's kind of going from a mistaken identity to a true identity. And that true identity is the same for everybody on earth. And I remember Jen and I were working with somebody and she said to me, it's so nice. Oh, my pigeon's getting his way. Worked with this lady and she said, I can't believe you spend this much time with a stranger. And I remember saying to her at the time, I said, do you know what? I haven't met a stranger in 5 years. It would have been 2018, 2019. And as I said it, I realized it was true. You know, because I discovered this livingness of life, I knew everybody. The only thing I don't know about them is the story they make up and present to the world. I don't know their reality that they're dreaming and thinking is real, the truth. I don't know that bit yet, and that's the bit I've got to get to know. But I know everybody. I can find love for everybody. I don't meet strangers. I meet people. And that was a real contrast to my life before 2013, where I was terrified of so many people. That's why I became a hard man. So I could protect myself and feel safe in this dreadful, dangerous world. The dreadful, dangerous world was obviously inside of me. It was my perspective of my creation, what I thought the world was. The fact it can change in a moment like that shows us how real and solid it all is. What a gift to wake up to that point. To know that, because like I said earlier on, I've not been in a good mood today. I've been in a foul mood a lot of today. In and out. When I've remembered to be in a bad mood. It's a beautiful gift that you know it's not permanent. Because it's a wave. Just knowing that it's not a permanent thing really shifts things for people. Even if they just say, oh shit, my feeling states are not permanent. They're like Cumbrian weather where I'm from. They say, don't like the weather, give it 5 minutes.
Same here.
Yeah.
Well, I noticed, for instance, that sometimes I sort of rejoice and delight in various qualities of mine, like cleverness, if I'm solving puzzles, which I love to do, or creativity, like my creativity, because I'm pretty arty. And then quickly I remind myself, well, it's not really your cleverness or your creativity. I mean, you're participating, you know, it's coming through you, but it's universal. It's like, that's what mind is, you know, that. And I think that it's a relief after being trained and conditioned to be a separate individual and compete with all the other individuals, which is just awful. And to just delight in creativity and brightness, how wherever it shows up, you know, in my dog, and you know, just in the world at large, and that we're all sharing all these qualities. No need to personalize it, you know. Like, oh, aren't I clever today? You know, it's like, yeah,
it's also
so
nice.
is everything else.
It's also really nice to enjoy something you created, though, isn't it? It's like,
Yeah,
oh yeah, the creation came through you. It's true, the creation did come through you.
yeah,
Like to be grateful and to enjoy that's the beauty of life.
yeah. You know, I mean, and the thing is, there's just less attached to it. Well, there's more freedom. I had a job, and I thought, I was filling in playing at a church, and I thought, oh, for the prelude and the offertory, it'd be nice to have springy kind of waltzes, and so I was looking for some, and then apparently the service was all about creativity, so I was like, you know, just write them, and each one I did too, and each one took about 20 minutes, and they just flowed out. The old me would have been kind of, oh, you know, because it would be about me and my ability as a composer, and it would mean something, and no, this was just like, you know, standing by a stream that's already flowing and just dipping in and just, you know, like, this is,
Yeah.
it's just easy. And I think it was something to show me, like, yeah, life can be so easy. It doesn't have to mean anything. It doesn't have to be about you. It wants to flow.
Yeah. That's right, love. And I often say this, you know, flow that we're searching for is the easiest state. I did nothing to find it. I did nothing to find it. You've said it. Countless people say it. There's a reason why people who suffer from depression feel exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's because to be in a depressed state of being actually takes more energy than to be peaceful.
Yeah.
You know, it's like to be in a depressed, if with the moment somebody forgets, they return to a state of peace. What did they do? They did nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You can't think your way to a state of peace. You can't wave your way to a calm ocean. But what I think you just said this as well, what we've been encouraged to do is try and figure it all out. Try and figure it all out. Think your way. How can you think your way out? And this just creates more turbulence within our consciousness. Now that turbulence is a stormy sea.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and this is why people who suffer from depression are exhausted. It's because it actually, I speak on behalf of myself. I spent a lot of my life in depression, but it's because I was doing a shitload of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And I was having to keep I didn't know I was doing this, but I was keeping myself down. I was suppressing myself. I didn't know I was doing that. Now, there'll be people who come across this perhaps and go, yeah, well, you can't have had proper depression, Dave. No, I had proper depression. I was going to commit suicide. I'd had enough of this life, but life didn't have that in store for me. I was fortunate.
Mm-hmm.
I had a shit time of it. I had a really shit time of it. I wouldn't change it for a minute. I really, really wouldn't. It was one of the greatest learnings. I couldn't speak about this, what I speak about now, without authentically having gone through it. Do you know what I mean? And come out the other side. But to realize that it actually takes more energy to be depressed than it does to be buoyant.
Right.
Buoyancy is our natural state of being. Not, the natural state of consciousness is non-judgment.
Mm-hmm.
The natural state of the power of thought is one of infinite potential, not one potential, judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why a quieter mind is closer to the mind of God, closer to the mind of the Creator, closer to the mind of Source. Be still and know that I am God. That's where we find it. That's where we discover this peace. It's discovered in stillness, not in trying to analyze and think the hell out of how the fuck does all this work again? How do the principles work? What are the principles? No, it's not. That's not it. That's just intellectual food. And intellectual food creates waves. But it's just in the letting go of all of it. It's in the letting go of the search. It's in the letting go of trying to be spiritual. It's in the letting go of trying to be good at life. It's in the letting go of everything and just being the only place you can actually be, just here and now. And depending on what depth an individual can find themselves in the here and now, determines the depth of how much they discover the spiritual nature of themselves. It was always there. It never left. The only thing that creates the impression that it doesn't actually exist is our own mind creating stories. That's what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be creating stories.
Mm-hmm.
It is the gift of life. You've been born. Another of my favorite Sid quotes is, you've been born with the gift to come into this world to create whatever reality you so wish. There is no greater gift in the universe than that.
Mm-hmm.
How true is that?
Mm-hmm.
There is no greater gift than to be alive, with the possibility of infinite potential at our hands. Heaven or hell? Heaven, what is heaven? Heaven is a state of consciousness. What is hell? Hell is a state of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
That's why when Jesus said, forgive and you'll go to heaven, he wasn't saying, oh, if you forgive, you'll go somewhere special when you die. He was saying, no, if you forgive, you'll take yourself into the heavenly realm of consciousness. You will let go of the burden that's weighing you down, keeping you suppressed in hell, and you will free yourself up into a heavenly state of consciousness.
Mm.
There's such wisdom in the Bible and the teachings. It's logic. I just want to check, Jen, you've had your hand up, but I assumed you pressed it by accident because you were watching Lucia and she was screaming.
No, I was going to say something, but I don't know if it's relevant now.
Sorry, sweetheart. I thought it was. I thought you pressed it by accident.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, it was quite a long time ago, and I can't really remember what was being spoken about. But one of the early audios of Sid it's called Beyond Psychology, and just a line from it really sort of came to mind, and it was something like, and what I'll try and do is find this recording and put it out, because I don't know if everyone has it. If you try and figure out how something came from nothing, you'll never make it, because the illusion of life has been created and you are it, or something like that. And I think sometimes we see the insanity of
trying to kind of figure out our ego or figure out our problems, but then we start trying to figure out the nature of life, or we try and use our intellect to look at that, and that seems like a worthier pursuit. But I felt like in that talk he really just sums it up, like, if you try and figure out how something comes from nothing, you'll never make it. You're too late. The illusion of life has been created. But I'll try and find it so that you can actually hear the exact quote. You're going to say goodbye now? We say good night. Yeah, but that's what I was going to say. I don't know if it's relevant now. But
No, it's
yeah.
always relevant. It's always relevant.
Mm.
Beautiful point.
Mm.
That's it. We're trying to figure out the impossible. The wave. We're trying to use a wave to realize the magnificence of the ocean. Now, the wave can never be the full magnificence of the ocean.
Mm.
Nice one, Jen. Thank you, Molly. Does anybody else want to say anything? It truly is in letting go. You know, a lot of people have their awakenings. I was one of them that I went through severe suffering, trying to keep control of everything, trying to keep control of my mind. So afraid that my mind would at some point run so out of control. I had to try and keep control of my mind. Oh, keep control of these thoughts. Oh, keep control of the world. It was only when my little ego couldn't hold on anymore that I finally just dropped it. That's why a lot of people come to the realization of life through suffering. They let go. They can't hold on anymore, and they let go. But like that old cliche, when they let go, they realize they can fly. I like to say, when I let go, I actually realized my feet were firmly on the ground.
Mm.
But it can be really tempting for people not to let go, because who am I without this? You know, I work with a lot of people, and every now and again I feel myself compelled to ask a question to some people: do you want to give up your suffering? And they'll go, I don't know. I've never thought about that. Do you actually want to give it up? And a few times people have said to me, no. And I've said, okay, well, come back to me when you're ready to. But right now, you're not done creating your story. You're not done dreaming your dream. You're not done playing with those feelings. And every now and again, somebody would say, I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready to, I don't know if I'm ready to give it up. Can I think about it? And they'll come back and say, well, the problem I'm facing, Dave, is who am I without depression? Who am I without anxiety?
Mm.
Better the devil you know, Dave. Better the devil you know. And I'll say to them, yeah, but it's still the devil.
Mm.
People are afraid to, many people are afraid to give up their story because it's very, very interesting to them.
Mm.
It doesn't matter how much suffering it creates, they're attached to it. They like it. But they don't realize the true magnitude of the realization of letting it go and discovering the creator as opposed to the created. Because any character that we are holding on to, any way of living our life, any way of thinking or believing or feeling is, oh, it's a creation. It's like an ocean wrapping its arms around a load of waves that don't serve it in a physically healthy way. I don't know about spiritually. It probably serves them spiritually very, very well just to have that experience, because at the end of the day, the soul cannot be broken. Consciousness cannot be dented or scratched. You cannot be scarred psychologically. That doesn't exist. Those are thoughts. But if somebody is holding, like an ocean, holding on to a clump of waves, like desperately wrapping its arms around them, going, no, 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 this is who I am, and this, I'm just these waves, and these waves, thinking that there's safety in the suffering. Why? Because human beings, in my experience, are so afraid of what they don't know. I often say this, and that's why our alien films are full of killing the aliens, and ghosts are always the most terrifying things, and different cultures are, ooh, can't have, what about those cultures over there? Or people we don't understand, like Trump supporters or Biden supporters or whatever, that we don't understand, we kind of turn into an enemy. And that's why many people turn life itself into an enemy. They become afraid of life. They become afraid of themselves. They become afraid of thoughts. They become afraid of their own experience of life. Why? Because they don't understand it. They don't understand that it's actually nothing to be afraid of. When another culture actually starts to integrate into another culture and comes together, they actually realize, we're actually quite similar, aren't we?
Mm.
Yeah, when I woke up and I realized, oh, ghosts do make sense. Yeah, their consciousness without the body. Oh, then the fear of those things died for me. As we start to gain understanding, fear dies. But only when somebody's ready.
Mm.
Somebody has to be ready. I had to be ready. I'd heard that thought creates reality, and to this day, I don't even know if it was in a dream that I experienced it. I can't remember now, but I knew before I had that, listened to Sid, I'd heard some from somewhere, I had an awareness that I knew that. But clearly I wasn't ready to pick it up. I don't know how people get ready. I don't know what makes one person ready and another person not ready, but it does seem that when somebody's ready to hear, they will hear. And if they're not ready, they won't. I haven't come across a type that I can pin down and go, that type of person doesn't hear, whether it be a heady person or anything like that. I often find that those who class themselves as intellectuals, they probably struggle the hardest because they are so attached to their intellectual ego, their capacity to figure things out, and they've been probably praised an awful lot throughout their life for it. They're desperately attached to this as it's some form of safety or identity that they think serves them. But the principles conversation isn't an intellectual conversation. It's pointing to a deeper point beyond the intellect, before the intellect. The intellect is too late. Such an interesting thing. When the intellect starts to go quiet, you don't not have thoughts. You still have thoughts, but you generally have thoughts that are more life-affirming, more useful. When you're not trying to figure it all out, you start to get more useful, life-affirming thoughts. Jen, do you want to say anything, love? I don't know if you can. I think you're putting Lucia to bed. Does anybody else want to say anything?
I just wanted to add what you said about people being attached to their suffering. I know people like that, and it makes complete sense. And I don't understand why they do it. But yeah, that was all.
I understand why they do it, because I did it. If it's familiar, it's safe.
Okay. So it's just about showing them compassion for where they're at.
That's a beautiful thing to offer somebody. Jen and I, when we do our work, we're never trying to change anybody. It's not our job. It's not our job to change someone. I don't know why people choose to go through whatever experience they choose to go through. When I say experience, I'm not talking circumstance. Circumstance and experience are two different things. We tend to clumsily link the two into one. They're not. Experience is the magical display of consciousness that we're experiencing right now, forever. And circumstance is something that takes place outside of us. But I don't know why people create whatever experience they're creating. There's, you know, there isn't really any such thing as a wrong experience. I love all my experiences, even my depression now. I love every single one of it. I'm so grateful to all of it. Thank you. It helps me meet people as people. It helps me see the innocence in people. It helps me find kindness a lot easier. I used to have such judgment of people who had affairs. I had an affair. Life will humble you. Now I have compassion for people who have affairs. I have no judgment of them. I have compassion for people who end up in prison. I never used to. I used to think they were scumbags. I ended up in prison. I have real compassion for people who make mistakes. And I think that's what life suffering offers us. It offers us the opportunity to love deeper. then if that's the case, we should all be grateful for our suffering. Because isn't that what's going to create a more beautiful world? Isn't that what's going to create a more wonderful experience here on Earth? No wrong feelings, no wrong experience. But we can live consciously or unconsciously. We can live with understanding, or we can live with misunderstanding. Nothing changes in the way we operate, for want of a better word, spiritual operation, but everything changes. Everybody is already the perfection they think they're on some embarking expedition to find. They already are that perfection. It's their being, it's their core. It's just we get so mesmerized by our creations, our experiences, time, identities, ideas, get mesmerized by feelings. We falsely attribute them to external events, circumstances. It's up to us. Everybody's all right. Everybody's whole. Everybody. Nobody can be broken. We're all testament to that point. Every single one of us is testament to that point, because we're human beings, and being human brings its challenges. And we all made it. Even through the experiences we never thought we would ever find a way out. The darkness that was so dark, tripping up over everything, walking into everything and stumbling our way through. Only to look back now and go, how did I even get out of that darkness? I don't know, but I did. What did you do? Not a lot. I don't know. I don't know what I did. I don't know what changed. What changed was consciousness. It just does. There's an intelligence that knows how to live life, and it is us, ourself. A true self knows how to live life. It creates life. It creates the life we experience. It knows how to live it. It can't be damaged. It cannot be broken. It's all a show. Everybody's on their own West End theatre production, trying to outdo the next West End theatre production, one way or another. It's all just actors on a stage. People pretending to be somebody they're not. A lot of people talk about their authentic self. You can't know your authentic self. To know is an attribute of the intellect. Even when it's discovered, it's a massive mystery. It's an impossible mystery. It makes no rational sense. Life itself isn't rational, though. None of this is rational. Is physicality rational? Is consciousness rational? Is thought rational? No. What the hell is actually rational? Is it rational we have eyes that we can see out of? Is it rational? How does it come about? What kind of intelligence are we talking about? Is it rational that we're both physical and non-physical at the same time? Is anything actually rational? When you look at it and really look at it and really look at it and really consider it, is this bin rational? Is that rational that that actually exists? It's all irrational. The whole thing's irrational. You can never think your way there. But it's true. All right, let's call it an evening. I've really enjoyed this. Thank you very much, everybody, for being part of this. This is a via donation event. It's how Jen and I make our money. If people wish to make donations, our PayPal is info@freedomthinking.co.uk. That's our PayPal donations. And if anybody wants to get our bank account details, please email us at the same thing, info@freedomthinking.co.uk, and we'll send you over our bank details. Yeah, we'll probably do some more of these pop-up events, but perhaps not when the cup final's on. So yeah, bad timing, Ellery. So just everybody, thank you all so much. These are all recorded. If you have people that you think may like to hear it, please pass it on, please share it. And just thank you everybody for being here. Everybody's been here. Thank you so much. Jen and I really appreciate she's putting Lucia to sleep, but right now I know Lucy will be wriggling all over her. So I'm going to go up and give her a hand. But just everyone, thank you so much for being here, and thanks so much for watching to the end. God bless everyone.